Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rachah, Wadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone for teaching this truth. Peace and salutations for all the Akim out there, kicking this word in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to get the word out. Now, back to the Wild Edible Plant series. This is the part 3. And the first plant I'm going to focus on today is a plant called Malva or Mallow. There's a couple slides here I want to check out. This plant grows pretty abundantly after a nice rainfall, especially usually for like a month or so afterwards, especially in the drier climates. Out here in California, Arizona, I think even Nevada. So we get to the habitat. The common mallow likes to grow in lawns, gardens, roadsides, waste areas, and cropland. You'll find huge stands of this in the cropland that's been abandoned, and even cropland that has crops growing in it. It'll be a common weed amongst the crops. Originated in Europe, Asia, and North Africa, it is also in the Americas and Australia. Edible parts of the plant are all parts of the plant are edible, and this is actually a pretty good tasting plant. I have added it to salads, the stems, the leaves. It could be slightly like a mucusy kind of texture. Let me get into this because it kind of describes it here in the edible parts description. The leaves can be added to salads, the fruits can be substituted for capers, and the flowers can be tossed into a salad. When cooked, the leaves create a mucus very similar to okra and can be used as a thickener for soups and stews. The flavor of the leaf is mild. That's why it's one of my favorites, because it's just so mild. Dried leaves can be used for tea. Mallow roots release a thick mucus when boiled in water. The thick liquid that is created can be beaten to make meringue-like substitute for egg whites. Common mallow leaves are rich in vitamins A, C, as well as calcium, magnesium, potassium, iron, and selenium. I'll pull up some pictures here. Okay, just a little drawing of it. One of the biggest identifiers is going to be that leaf, and if it's in flower, if it's flowering, then also the flowers. But once you really have an idea of what that leaf looks like, it's hard to mix it up with anything else. It's kind of got a rounded leaf, but slightly serrated around the edges, and also that leaf is it's like folded. That's a pretty decent shot. There's a nice stand of it. It's probably just one bush actually. It can get pretty big, up to 3-4 feet. Those are the largest I've seen. And then sometimes there's just these little puny things like this. Really tiny leaves. You'll see like, some of them have real small leaves, and then some of them have pretty large leaves, depending on how much rain they get, the climate you're in. Notice that flower. You have white, from this pinkish white flower to white to sometimes even a purple flower. That's a pretty good shot. Get a good shot of those leaves. They're kind of cupped too, round, cupped, and then some folding in the leaves. That's a pretty delicious looking one right there. Very fresh, very green. Here you can see the folding in the leaves. At least from the top down view, you just can tell by the shading. of it, like that leaf right there at the top. It's got that shading on it. You can tell it's a folded shape because of the lighting. There's more of a purplish white flower. And that's it for Malva. Next, we're going to look at lamb's quarter. All right, lamb's quarter habitat. Lamb's quarter thrives as a common weed in gardens, near streams, rivers, forest clearings, fields, and waste places, in distributed soils. It is very hardy and grows in many areas throughout Canada and the US. It is also found in South America, Central America, many countries throughout Africa, Middle East, Europe, several Asian countries, Slovakia. Very common in India, Australia, and New Zealand. The edible parts are the leaves, the shoots, the seeds, and the flowers. Saponins in the seeds are potentially toxic and should not be consumed in excess, so don't get too crazy with those seeds. Lamb's quarter contains some oxalic acid, therefore when eating this raw, small quantities are recommended. Cooking removes this acid. Lamb's quarter can be eaten in salads or added to smoothies and juices. Steaming this edible weed is one method of cooking, or it can be added to soups, sautés, and much more. Drying this wild edible is one way to add nutritious plant to your meals throughout the winter, or you can blanch and freeze the leaves. Now I've done that drying them, kind of like if you're familiar with kale chips. Did pretty much the same thing, dehydrated them actually alongside of kale and malva, and mixed all three of them up, coated them lightly with olive oil and salt, and they were pretty delicious. So snacking on them one summer. It's pretty good stuff. We'll get into some pictures here. So a big identifier for this is that silvery tone that you see right there in the top of that leaf. It looks like it's white right in the center of the plant from the top down view. It'll actually look silvery. It'll have a silvery sheen to it. And then sometimes, here's a good one. And the leaves are, they tend to be more on the grayish side. You'll see some leaves that are greener, but it'll look kind of like this. And there's that sheen that's really prominent in this one on the leaves. It's actually kind of a beautiful plant. Notice the shape of those leaves as well. And there's the seed pods. This is in the later maturing stages. This is a really good photo of it. You can see that sheen on there, just on the center leaves. And sometimes that sheen will be a reddish color as well, just like this. You can see on this plant. All right, on to the next. Last one for this video is going to be stinging nettles. Now this is by far my most favorite herb. It's very high in minerals. It makes a fantastic tea. Let's see if they have some good shots of it. There we go. Really the shape of the plant and those pods on it Seed pods are probably the biggest identifier in the leaf shape. Okay, nettles generally appear in the same locations every year. They thrive in rich soil, moist woodlands, thickets, undisturbed areas, along partially shaded trails and riversides. Now, I've always found them, in Montana at least, I always found them alongside of riversides, creek sides, like the moist woodlands. They seem to like that water and hang out next to where the water's running. Edible parts: the leaves, the stems, and the roots. Young leaves are preferable, however, no matter how far into the growing season, be sure to remember that until dried or cooked, stinging nettle leaves will have those stinging hairs. Never eat them raw. Nettles make an excellent spinach substitute and can also be added to soups and stews. Nettle beer is brewed from the young shoots. Nettle root is used for medicinal purposes, including enlarged prostate and when there is difficulty in urination due to BPH. Nettle tea made from the root can help urinary ailments. The tea from the leaves is rich in iron and can aid coagulation and the formation of hemoglobin. And like I said, this makes a very good tea. I would also cook with it, add it to soups. I make a dry mix with the not just the nettles, but the spices, herbs and spices, the seasoning. Add all of that together with the nettles in there, crumbled up. You can put it in a grinder or hand grind it after the plant's dried, of course. And very nutritious to add to soups. You can really tell the difference when you add it to your food. And then the tea, just the nettles by itself is, man, it's so nutritious. There's a little drawing of it. Pay attention to those leaves and the little seed pods there. And those little they call it stinging nettle because it has these little thorns on it that they don't prick the skin and make you bleed, but it actually stings. Now, I spent a couple of summers picking this plant and kind of got used to the sting. You recommend picking it with gloves because of that sting could cause irritation to the skin, but it's nothing serious. It's not like a bee sting or anything like that. It's actually, I found it, sometimes it kind of felt good in a way. I can't really describe it. It wasn't really painful. It's just this slight prick that it goes away pretty quickly, the pain of it. Slovakia. Pay attention to those that leaf shape, how it's serrated on the edges there, and then the pods at the top of the leaf. Those pods can get pretty tall too, above the leaf structure. And there's the little thorns. I don't know what those things are, but when they sting you, it's almost like they pop. It's a really interesting sting. Here's a stand of them. And this is a really good shot of a nettle plant. You can see the pods they're not just at the top, they grow in between the leaves, up and down the plant. And these things can get pretty tall, 5 feet. I think it's probably the tallest I've seen them. They probably get taller than that. There's that drawing again. I think that's the same drawing. Here's a good shot of those pods. Notice the color of the stalk too, how it gets brownish red. There's the leaves before it starts growing those seed pods. And here's these are the ones I'd really like picking because all those seed pods on that stem there, there's just so much nutrition in those things. They would add so much flavor to teas and soups. And this is a good way to identify them too. They get looks almost like a marijuana plant with those those buds on top, those seed pods. You can see this one's it has so much it's kind of leaning over. It'll get pretty weighty on top. You'll see it do that. And this is actually a stand of them. You can see them kind of blurred in the background. Pretty good find. I think that's it for this one. Here we go. Some more photos here. You can see in this one the pods have taken on a different color. They're not as green. I've never seen one that looked like this. The pods are usually like a dark green, dark gray, green, almost a black even. Not fully black, with like a green black. Still, the shape of the plant's the same. Here's a fairly large stand of them. And there's those seed pods. So notice at the top of the plant, the leaves start getting very thin. At the bottom of the plant, they're more wide, like a spade shape almost. And at the top, they start getting pretty thin and not oval, but just elongated. It almost looks like a marijuana plant with one leaf. I'll go back to another shot here. Notice how the leaves grow across from each other, 2 and 2. That's a good way to identify the young plant. There's the 2 and 2 across from each other as well. 2 and 2. Okay, then I'm going to end this one here with just these 3 plants, and I'll look forward to the next. Shalom.